Good morning and welcome to the 2021 edition of the National Weather Service Paducah Winter Weather Workshops. My name is Mike York and we'll talk about our future National Weather Service winter weather operations. I've got four short topics to talk about. The first one is hazard services. What exactly is hazard services? It's an innovative and new National Weather Service software application that generates watches, warnings, and advisories. Currently, we issue our watches, warnings, and advisories with about 3 different software packages. The goal is to consolidate all of our watch and warning software into hazard services. Hazard services is a national effort that's going to take several years to implement. It's being implemented in different phases. It's a powerful software package that modernizes how we produce our watches and warnings. We're already using hazard services for all of our hydrological products, our flood and flash flood warnings and watches and statements. Well, the future calls for hazard services to be our main software package for all types of watches and warnings. Starting next winter of 22-23, we're currently planning to use hazard services for our winter products. Now, you should not notice any change. This product generation software will produce the exact same products. There won't be any change in format. Just telling you so that you'll know that the forecaster will be doing things differently. It's a more map-based software, and in the long run it'll make our jobs easier. Topic 2 is hazard simplification, otherwise known as HazSimp. I've talked about this in previous workshops and more progress has been made. In this case, the decision has been made to eliminate all types of advisory products. Now, this doesn't mean we're going to eliminate the messaging. We're just going to eliminate the term advisory. A little background on HazSimp. Hazard simplification is it's a national change in policy. It's designed to reduce the confusion. Watch, warning, advisory, it can run together for the general public. Surveys have revealed that some users find this terminology confusing. What's the difference between a watch, a warning, and an advisory? Also, there's confusion about all the different types of watches and advisories. You know, there's a high wind warning, a wind advisory, a lake wind advisory, a high wind watch, and the general public sometimes has trouble keeping it all straight. So, effective no sooner than 2024, the advisory terminology will be ceasing. The Weather Service will be issuing only watches and warnings. The advisory products will not be issued. Also, the special weather statement will be removed. This does not mean we will stop conveying hazardous weather information. In fact, we plan to convey it even better than before. We just won't be using the term advisory. Instead of a statement or an advisory, we'll be using plain language headlines. Again, this move from advisory to plain language headlines, it will continue to describe the hazard without losing emphasis. This won't begin until at least 2024, so no worries. There will be no reduction in the messaging. We're still going to communicate the hazard at least as well as we did, maybe better. Moving on to winter storm watches. There's some changes coming up over the next several years involving how winter storm watches are produced. First, we have to remember the definition of a winter storm watch. The term winter storm refers to a high impact event. Typically in our area that means at least 4 inches of snow or at least a 1/4 inch of ice. A winter storm watch is issued in advance of a winter storm warning, just like every other type of watch and warning. Typically we try to get out a winter storm watch somewhere between 1 and 3 days ahead of the potential winter storm. Now, the Weather Prediction Center, some of you may not be familiar with it. It's a national center located near Washington, D.C. It provides guidance to all the NWS field offices, such as Paducah. The WPC is in some ways similar to the Storm Prediction Center, or SPC, which is located near Oklahoma City. The Storm Prediction Center is focused on thunderstorm-related outlooks and watches, whereas the WPC is focused more on flood hazards and winter weather hazards. And the WPC, as the years go on, is becoming increasingly involved in the issuance of winter storm watches. Here is a proposed approach for watch creation. The graphic on the right is already how things are done. The Storm Prediction Center issues tornado watches with some input from the field offices. But that's what a tornado watch looks like now. You can see that on the web. The left graphic is not in reality yet, but the Weather Prediction Center may someday begin issuing winter storm watches. The field offices would continue to play a role in their issuance. This would not be in any way eliminating the field offices. Where winter storm probabilities are greater than 30 to 50%, the winter storm watch would be proposed by the Weather Prediction Center, and then the field offices would provide their input, and the Weather Prediction Center would probably issue the final product. Now, winter storm watches could eventually incorporate the Winter Storm Severity Index. I'll go into more detail on that next. The threshold for watch issuance could vary based on forecaster input from the field offices, and the NWS field offices would provide forecaster expertise. So this would not diminish the role of the field offices. Currently, the WPC is limited to providing guidance to the field offices. WPC provides maps showing the probability of meeting warning criteria. Where that probability is 50% or more, the National Weather Service field offices oftentimes will issue a winter storm watch, but not always. Sometimes the watch will be issued when the probability is only 30% based on WPC guidance. WPC currently leads conference calls for the affected field offices twice a day before a winter storm, once on the midnight shift and once on the day shift. So WPC does play a role at this time, but that role is gradually increasing. Now let's talk about topic 4 a little more, about the Winter Storm Severity Index. This is something that has been around now for several years and is becoming more popular. What exactly is it? It's a measure of the severity of a winter storm based on more than just the amount of snow or ice. The amount tells part of the story, but you have to factor in some other things. Wind speed. You can have blizzard conditions with only 2 inches of snow. Another thing is power outages. A heavy wet snow can bring down trees. There's temperature. Extreme cold can also aggravate the impacts of a winter storm. So the current plan is to explore the potential use of this index in the issuance of winter storm watches and warnings. We don't want to issue watches and warnings based purely on meteorological parameters. We want them based on their impact to society. A winter storm severity index in the moderate category could be the foundation for a watch or warning issuance in the future. We don't really use it very heavily right now when it comes to the basis for issuing watches or warnings, but that's something that's being explored increasingly. Here's an example of a winter storm severity index map for the area that our office covers. This is from January 19th of 2019, and you can see the yellow shaded area is the moderate category for a forecast winter storm. In the future, we could base a watch or warning issuance on that map and have it cover the area shaded in yellow. This is something that's being talked about and explored and may come to fruition, but it's a national decision and not one made here locally at the Paducah office. If you do want to look at the Winter Storm Severity Index, there is the website up at the top of the graphic. A little more about the Winter Storm Severity Index. In some ways, it's similar to the ranking of hurricanes on a scale of 1 to 5. It's an attempt to categorize the severity of a winter storm. It takes into account the depth of the snow or ice, as well as the wind speed, the drifting snow, power outages, other impact-based items that are not purely evident just based on snow amount. One note of caution about this index: based on evaluations here locally, it works best for the bigger events, the winter storm events, and not so much for our minor, what we call winter weather events, which are 2 inches or less. Sometimes pavement temperatures can have a significant effect on minor events depending on what they are, and this index currently does not take into account pavement temperatures. So to summarize, Hazard Services is our new software package for generating watches and warnings, currently used only for flood-related products, but we plan to expand that to winter products next winter. HazSimp, or Hazard Simplification, means no more advisories starting no sooner than 2024, but at some point in the future, the advisory terminology will come to an end. The Weather Prediction Center is playing an increasing role in watch issuance. The vision from national headquarters is similar to the Storm Prediction Center's role in tornado watch issuance. And lastly, we talked about the Winter Storm Severity Index and how we could incorporate that into the watch warning issuance.